So I'm obsessed a little bit about the Earth system models trying to improve their simulations, predictions, projections, etc. by just brute force increasing of resolution. If you don't know what that means, you can follow up on my climate modeling introduction podcast. Basically, you arrange the world, the sphere, the atmosphere, the ocean into grids of various shapes depending on what method you're using, and smaller the grid size, more the computational cost, and the assumption is that you need to make them as small as possible, maybe 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, which is called cave scale modeling, and I have podcasts on that as well. And the idea is to really think about whether just increasing resolution is important or enough, or should we worry about how land atmosphere interactions work, because land use is a very small scale thing. If you walk around even in an urban area, you have various forms of land use, and this is especially so in rural areas or forests, and then there are all these animals which are doing their thing, and they are actually shaping the earth's surface. So I'm going to use this paper just to kind of touch on that point again, because I have talked about it a bit elsewhere. Global diversity and energy of animals shaping the earth's surface. I don't know why I said energy, but anyway, what is the significance of this? PNAS proceedings of the National Academies of Sciences papers tend to have a blurb on significance, which is supposed to summarize it for, let's say, non-experts, and I'm definitely a non-expert in energy of animals shaping the Earth's surface. Animals profoundly influence the Earth's surface processes and landforms, but their collective significance has not been quantified. Integrating data across freshwater and terrestrial ecosystems, we uncovered over 600 animals with reported geomorphic effects, so they change the shape of the land, let's say, including 5 livestock taxa. Many more are doubtless overlooked due to inherent geographical and taxonomic biases in published research. So this is a meta-analysis of looking at published literature to summarize the impacts. We conservatively estimate that wild animal species collectively contribute 76,000 gigajoules of energy or more, 76,000 gigajoules energy or more to geomorphic processes annually, equivalent to the energy expended by hundreds of thousands of extreme floods. Hundreds of thousands of extreme floods. We know that extreme floods cause all kinds of devastation and leave strong marks on geomorphology of the lands over which they run. So imagine hundreds of thousands of extreme floods per year. Livestock acting as geomorphic agents are estimated to exceed this contribution by 3 orders of magnitude. 3 orders of magnitude. Our results reveal that energy of animals geomorphic agents, energy of animal geomorphic agents is a significant and overlooked driver of landscape change at the global level, which means they must have an impact on weather, climate, and various impacts on storms, convections, etc. Right? The abstract, then formally more scientific, the collective influence of animals on the processes shaping the Earth's surface remains largely unknown, with most studies limited to individual species and well-known exemplars. To establish the global geomorphic significance of animals, we systematically reviewed and synthesized evidence across freshwater and terrestrial ecosystems. Over 600 animal taxa had reported geomorphic effects. For the 495 wild animals and 5 livestock identified to species level, we estimated their global abundance and collective biomass and energy. While our census is global in scope, a lack of research in the tropics and subtropics and on less visible animals leaves them underrepresented in this analysis. Most reported species are globally widespread, but some are rare, endemic, and or threatened, leading to risks that key geomorphic processes cease before we fully understand them. So there is the idea of worrying about the impact of the animals' land uh, use land change, and what are the beneficial and detrimental effects of them. We have looked at some elks grazing in snowy areas and how they affect microclimate and are beneficial. Elephants do that, whales do that, and so on. Most reported species are globally widespread, as we said. We estimate the collective biomass in wild animal geomorphic agents at 0.2 million tons of carbon, equating to a biological energy content of 7.6 million gigajoules. If a conservative minimum 1% of this energy contributes to geomorphic work annually, this yields an energy contribution from the wild animal geomorphic agents of 76,000 gigajoules, which we said already is equivalent to the energy of hundreds of thousands of extreme floods. Uncertainties in biomass estimates and the energy partitioning mean this value could credibly be an order of magnitude higher, and countless species remain unreported or undiscovered. The livestock estimates exceed the wild animals estimates by 3 orders of magnitude. The geomorphic energy of animals is far more influential than previously recognized, and future losses, dispersal and introductions of zoogeomorphic species may induce substantive landscape changes. Substantive, some people say substantive, but anyway, let's read a bit of text before we see some figures. I'm obviously going to be brief as usual, so you have to read the paper if you are interested in more details, and there are always good references in such papers, right? Empirical studies overwhelmingly focus on single species, on a single species within a specific environment, but exponential growth in biogeomorphological research over the last 20 to 21 20 years, sorry, 21 is the reference. Let me read it again. Empirical studies overwhelmingly focus on a single species within a specific environment, but exponential growth in biogeomorphological research over the last 20 years creates a unique opportunity to bring together diverse evidences across species and ecosystem types. Here we used a systematic review to derive an inventory of reported animal geomorphic agents and their effects from 513 peer-reviewed studies. These are called meta-analysis. We then analyzed global species and biomass inventories to estimate the global geomorphic significance of these animals in terms of their taxonomic diversity, their global occurrence, and their collective biomass and biological energy. We focus on terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems, excluding marine and coastal ecosystems, and ecosystem engineering by humans, and include reported geomorphic effects related to the removal of materials such as bioerosion, the biological working of soils and sediments such as bioturbation, and the production and accumulation of materials such as bioconstruction, including activities that stabilize materials and reduce erosion, which is bioprotection. The study was global in scope, but the species inventory is inevitably influenced by well-known biases in research, publications, and the historical concentration of taxonomic resources, meaning that data are richest for Northern Hemisphere temperate zones, which accounted for 62% of the publications, while areas of known high biodiversity such as the tropics are doubtless underrepresented with only about 37% of the publications. To acknowledge this bias, we use the term reported geomorphic agents throughout. So obviously there are lots of assumptions involved and uncertainties. My only point is to say there is a significant impact by the animals in the way they live. They are not like us, changing things at a rapid pace and putting many other species at risk, but nonetheless they are part of the system, and there's always an idea to decide whether they are able to live in harmony with the nature, they are symbiotic, or not destroying the environment like we do, and so on. So without going into details, they looked at mammalia, aves, reptilia, amphibia, actinopterygii, Hyperoasia. So you get the sense that I'm not a biologist, and I'm not. So here we are looking at graphic representations, global diversity, range and conservation status of reported geomorphic species and types of geomorphic effect. Number of geomorphic species identified from published literature. Filled circle is a species, color coded by taxonomic class, with circles scaled by research attention, number of papers. So these are the colors and they are going in here, and the size of the circle corresponds to the number of studies they could find. So terrestrial, large number of species. Freshwater, also fair number of species, but you can see the entire system is much smaller. Again, biases play into this. And if you look at the range status, native only, so non-native only, native and non-native together, and livestock forms. So native only is a large fraction. Critically endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, declining population, unknown population trend. I don't want to go into those kinds of details, but they form about a third here. Least concern and not classified are the rest of it. Bioturbation, so the numbers here, let's see, in D we are looking at zoogeomorphic landforms and processes identified within terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems. Filled circle scaling reflects number of species linked with that effect. Some species may be associated with multiple effect types such as burrows and mounds, dens and diggings, but each species is only represented once for each type of effect. Classifications are primarily based on descriptions and terminology provided in the original published study. So just focus on the kind of processes: bioturbation, bioconstruction and bioerosion. They're mixing, soil ingestion, foraging and motion, mounds, redds, dams, nests, soil sheets, casts, nets and cases. Burrows, so in the bioerosion, burrows, a lot of burrowing animals. Wallows, trampling, galleries, diggings, grazing, dens, rubs or scrapes, and traits. Okay, so there are freshwater species, terrestrial species, and freshwater and terrestrial species. You can see a lot of them are freshwater and terrestrial species. So just focus on the processes. The next one is about global geomorphic species occurrence, terrestrial and freshwater, and livestock is a small sliver of it, but nonetheless occurrence records for all these species is shown in terms of the number of genera. Let's just look at the global map of occurrence per 12,100 square kilometers. The scale here is up over 540,000 occurrences. So you can see that the data itself is heavily concentrated in these regions. So we have to be careful, and these are snowy, less populated regions, poorer countries that didn't do such data gathering, population concentration here, and so on and so forth. But if you look at species also, you see there is a larger concentration here and here, but this is not for lack of species presence, but it's because of the studies are themselves much more concentrated in the northern hemisphere, western countries that are rich. So classification of genera containing geomorphic species based on genus size, proportion of reported geomorphic agents, and taxonomic characteristics. Groups are organized by ecosystems and total genus size, each filled circle, etc. So monotypic genus, single geomorphic agent. So basically it's again looking at terrestrial and freshwater. Monotypic, small genus, large genus, and very large genus. Of course, large genus is a large number with a lot of species, and it becomes much more uniform in terms of insecta and arachnida, spiders here in very large genus. You can think of the allometric scaling there if you want. Total number of elephants will be, the biomass of the total number of elephants will be much smaller than the total biomass of insects, because larger the size, fewer the numbers, even though each one weighs a lot. whereas smaller the size, they will be very large in number, so their estimated total biomass will be much larger. Has to do with energetic constraints and so on, but you get the picture that everybody in the considered studies from terrestrial and freshwater species are involved in geomorphic effects on the Earth's surface. So energy available for geomorphic work, again, there are uncertainties: species richness, species occurrence, geomorphic disturbance, and number of species represented in the circle size. So you can see it's equivalent to extraordinary floods, and there is of course monsoon and mountain slope processes for comparison, and they are down here, whereas all these species together, ranging from all wild land animals up here, livestock is smaller in number, but the impact available energy for geomorphic work is incredibly high. Ants do a lot of things: primates, odd hoofed animals, carnivores, rabbits and hares, marsupials, elephants, rodents, and wildland mammals. So this is the main point I would make, that should the models worry about this energy coming into the system and modifying land, and what time scales does it happen, how does it affect weather, climate, extremes, and so on, or should we just keep increasing resolution without worrying about such relations of other species with their land use? Okay, so that's the main point. Here is a nicer rendition of the same thing. Number of papers, different species. I won't go into it, but again, Europe and North America dominate, especially the US. Certain regions like the Amazon in Brazil have attracted a lot of attention for biodiversity studies, so there are many there. Similarly, some studies over India and China, and this is a region, South Africa, where I've heard that if you go from this end to this end, you will find one entire kingdom of vegetation species or some such thing, but also has received a lot of attention and so on. Okay, so let's read the discussion just to conclude. Animals acting as geomorphic agents have a profound influence on the processes shaping the Earth's surface, yet until now the global diversity and collective biomass and energy of these animals has remained unexplored. Our analysis has shown that the diversity and abundance of freshwater and terrestrial animals shaping the Earth's surface is extensive. Our research has identified 500 animal species that are reported as geomorphic agents. They range in body size from insects to megafauna, spanning 13 taxonomic classes and all freshwater and terrestrial ecosystem types. And this is not even being exhaustive. Reporting of zoogeomorphic agents was disproportionately sparse in global biodiversity hotspots such as the tropics and subtropics. Among insects, also sparse in insects, which likely host undiscovered species numbering millions, and among smaller, less visible but potentially impactful Cinderella species, such as those living underwater or underground. You can go on YouTube and find videos of people filling cement into abandoned ant colonies, and they are as big as cities with similar complicated networks within the underground nest that they build. So they are massive zoogeomorphologists. Other animal geomorphic agents may also be overlooked or underemphasized because their impacts are not obvious, and so on. We found that terrestrial environments were richer in reported zoogeomorphic species in absolute terms, but that freshwater habitats contain a higher proportion of reported zoogeomorphic species per unit area, and freshwater zoogeomorphic species collectively were more globally abundant based on available occurrence data. Freshwater ecosystems are known to support high biodiversity per unit area overall, but are subject to multiple stressors and are experiencing exceptionally high rates of population decline. This indicates high risks of future decline or loss of important zoogeomorphic processes. The zoogeomorphic processes and landforms associated with other vulnerable taxa such as terrestrial megafauna and marsupials, kangaroo types, face similar future threats. Indeed, more than a quarter, almost 28% of all reported zoogeomorphic species were listed as being exposed to current or future threats, meaning that there is a real risk of losing many zoogeomorphic processes from landscapes before we have developed a full understanding of their environmental significance. Okay? Our analysis has revealed that the energy of zoogeomorphic species represents a significant and overlooked driver of zoogeomorphic change at the global level. Some of their energy will drive changes that are beneficial for ecosystem functioning, but some may also be ecologically destructive, such as effects of invasive non-native zoogeomorphic agents. The nature and significance of these processes will also be altered by the combined effects of climate change on geomorphic systems, species ranges, and trait filtering. Okay, so they evolve to change their traits, and that affects their geomorphic impacts as well. So it's obviously not clear if all the species are creating some beneficial or mutually beneficial reaction, mutually beneficial existence with the ecosystem they live in, but considering some of them have been around for tens of millions of years or hundreds of millions of years, it's likely that they haven't been as destructive as we are. But non-native species or invasive species, of course, come from outside and they haven't built a relation yet with the local ecosystem, so they may end up being destructive. But we should be careful calling other species as destructive, considering or invasive, considering we ourselves have colonized the entire globe by this time, starting in a little part of Africa. Okay, so anyway, main point again, how important are these for weather and climate and extremes and so on? We need to think about it in terms of modeling. Okay.